1965 Chevrolet 210 two-door sedan. 55 Chevy two-door post. Tri-5. Shoebox. Double nickel. A lot of old cars end up with nicknames, and this one is no exception. 1955 was a major milestone in automotive manufacturing, marking the first significant shift in car design since World War II. It also saw the introduction of one of the most popular and longest-running engine families in history, the small-block Chevrolet V8, Mouse Motor, SBC. I'm sure there are other names that I'm too young to know. It debuted in the 1955 model year Chevrolet cars, pickups, and Corvettes. Those of you who are unfamiliar with this era of cars may not realize that Chevy, as well as most other manufacturers, made few different models of cars in the 50s. The Bel Air, 210, and 150 were all the same car, just different trim levels. It wasn't until the Corvair came out in 1960 that Chevrolet offered more than one family car, if you can call it that, at the same time. The small block Chevy started out at 265 cubic inches, making just 162 horsepower with a 2-barrel carburetor. It was also available with a 4-barrel Rochester carb, pushing stock power up to 180 in the Bel Air line of cars and 195 in the Corvette. I won't go into further detail here, mostly because the only thing left on this car from 1955 is the sheet metal. Under the hood of this black and chrome Tri-5 is a later Model 350, supposedly from a 70s Corvette, with headers, air conditioning, power brakes, power steering, and an Edelbrock aluminum intake and 4-barrel carburetor. The factory transmission, whether it was a 3-on-the-tree or a 2-speed power glide, is long gone as well, with a Muncie 4-speed and a Hurst 4-shifter in its place. The rear end is somewhat more modern as well, with a 410-gear GM 12-bolt rear end with posit traction in place. It also has disc brakes up front and 15-inch American Racing torque thrust wheels at all 4 corners. Even the chassis, or should I say frame, no one says chassis when they're talking about a classic muscle car, it's custom. It's no Art Morrison one-off, but it is entertaining to watch the car rock side to side at idle. The interior isn't overdone, with just a plain gray velour bench seat front and rear. The steering wheel is either aftermarket or from a later model car. I'm not really sure which. The gauges are still factory, complete with a working dash clock on the passenger side. The 90s restoration shows again in the aftermarket cassette deck and radio, which tunes in from a trick power antenna. The 55 Chevy two-door post is my dad's favorite car, and this one belongs to him. He had one in the same color, back in the day. Sure, I'll go with that. That one was a Bel Air, and this is a 210, but the rest of the car was pretty similar. It's somewhat unusual to see a Tri-5 that isn't two-tone, but this is how he likes them. Why? American graffiti. The 55 through 57 Chevy is one of a few groups of cars that I think will never go out of style. Earlier and later years of the Chevrolet line of cars, be it late 40s Fleet lines or mid-70s Impalas, just won't stay popular. Or, as my dad likes to say, Chevrolet didn't make a car before 1955. Back to the one my dad had back in the day. After owning the car for a number of years, he decided to sell it to help raise money for a down payment on the farm. When someone showed up to buy the car, the buyer told my dad that he knew more about it than my dad did. Okay? How does that work? Keep in mind, this was not the guy my dad bought the car from. He told my dad to look in a certain spot and his name would be written there. Sure enough, it was. Alright, so what? The guy owned the car before. That's nothing unusual. Oh, but it was. This man who showed up to buy my dad's old 55 had just gotten out of prison for stealing this car. A few years prior, he stole it from an old woman, then tore out the original engine and transmission and swapped in a hot-rodded 327 on a Muncie 4-speed. Once the police finally recovered the car, the woman didn't want to drive it because it was too much for her to handle. That allowed my dad to buy it. Now that's a good story.